Okay, recording on. There's your audio clap if you need it.
There's the audio clap.
All right, folks. Well, welcome to the maiden voyage of the Gamin' Podcast. I'm Blitz, and this is my co-host, Jim. We decided to start this podcast because we love talking about gaming, and we wanted to share our thoughts and our views with you, talk about the news, talk about what we're doing in video games, what we love about them. I've been gaming since as far back as I can remember, back to 3 years old. The first console generation that I really truly remember was the Nintendo 64, getting it at Christmas. We had Super Mario World, but my brothers grew up on like Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo, NES, so we had those in the house, and I remember those. And I don't think the golden years of gaming are over yet. I still think there's many more great games to come, and I think gaming's, apart from some other crazy stuff that we're going to get into today, I think gaming's still in a wonderful place, and I think there's still magic in gaming.
Oh no, for sure. And as for me, right? I started gaming. See, I knew that pun will pull off. By the way, I see when we were deciding podcast names. You named the Gaming Podcast. See, when I started gaming, right? So, for the Gaming Podcast, for when I started gaming, right? The fondest memory I have is going over. Do you remember? Okay, I'm gonna date myself here. When we went over to Toys R Us, right? I'm gonna very much date myself. Went over to
Toys R Us
right?
was the secret gaming spot. People slept on going to Toys R Us because that's where you found the stuff that was sold out everywhere else.
And mind you, I grew up on the islands. I grew up in Hawaii, right? So it was Toys R Us and then a Circuit City, right? I think those were the electronic stores. And there are mom and pop gaming stores, but I didn't really go there when I was younger. But anyway, Toys R Us was like the huge place, and I remember picking up a Game Boy Color, right? It was the Pikachu edition of the Game Boy Color.
Dude, do you still have
yellow. That? I do not have that. I absolutely
it's
do
worth
not have
money
that.
now. It's worth money
and
now.
It's worth money. After the fact that we gave it away, I was like, I have a Game Boy. I have a Game Boy Advance, right? And I was like, I don't need this anymore, right? We live and learn by that moment, but so I've never thrown away a console since the GameCube, I think, right? I don't think I've ever given away a console after that. I've had consoles break on me, like I've had multiple DSs break on me. There was one instance where the hinges on the DS Lite were very, very sensitive, right? So you could have like a broken hinge on there. Like I think all I did was just put a little pressure with my hand on the DS Lite, right? And the hinge broke, and it was just like it just became wobbly at that point, right? So, but yeah, that kind of history. Primarily now, I play a lot of RPGs. Used to be a huge into just like playing shooters and stuff like that. As I've aged, I realize what's the word I want to use? My ambidextrous. I don't know, whatever word you want to use. My gaming skills have very much declined, right? And that's why I'm into RPGs nowadays, because I can't do that. When I played Halo Infinite for like the first time in like a couple years ago, when it first came out, I was like, man, I'm either way worse at this than I remember, or I was just terrible at it at the beginning. But I wasn't that bad, because I had I had like a 45 in doubles in Halo 3. That's beside the point, right? Not to go over gaming credentials, right? But yeah, no, there was a that's my journey so far. There's a lot, like you said, the golden ages are not over. There's a lot of good games that are coming out. There's a lot of games that we're going to talk about today that are, primarily delayed, first of all, but also, coming out soon, and they're highly anticipated, and we're going to talk about that. So, shall we get on to some of the topics for today?
Yeah, let's talk about the news. So
All right.
you've been doing some news sleuthing this week. Tell me what's happening in gaming. What's
All right. So some of the things that I have listed down here is, well, I just talked about it. One game primarily got delayed. It was Grand Theft Auto 6, right? So, um, I don't know. Have you ever? I'm sure you've played Grand Theft Auto. Have you ever played?
so
I'm sure you have.
I'm it is a blind spot in my gaming is
Really?
I am not a big Rockstar guy. I've not played the Red Dead Redemptions. I haven't played much GTA. My experience with GTA was Vice City and San Andreas growing up, going to my neighbor's house, and we would play them. And he would always yell at me because when you stuck me in an open world game and told me that I could do whatever I wanted, first thing I did was stuff that you weren't supposed to do. So like 95% of my GTA playtime is running from the cops. I have no idea about the stories of the game. I have no idea about any other mechanics. I was just like, oh, so you're telling me I can get in a car and start like breaking stuff and causing accidents? And that was my GTA.
Do you want to know? Do you want to know the funny thing about that too? Is that was also my first exposure to GTA like that. I remember going over. It might have been a cousin's house. I remember going over to a cousin's house, and they had. It might have been Vice City. It might have been San Andreas up, right? And I was just sitting there, and they were like, "Do you want to play?" Right? I was like, "Sure." And I was like maybe like 8 or like 9 or like pretty young at that age. I didn't know what was happening. All I know
Yeah.
was that people were just shooting things, and then, do you know what the cool thing about that was? That was my first introduction to cheat codes ever.
Oh.
So so my cousin, or I think it was my cousin at the time, or at this point, um, he was like, "Let me show you something really cool." He put in this cheat code. He spawned a tank in, right? And I was like, you know, young me was just like flabbergasted about that, right? And it's just like, oh my god, you can put a tank in. You can generate whatever cars you wanted. You can have like unlimited money. It was the coolest thing ever. Um, anyway, going back on topic here, it was recently delayed. It was originally supposed to come out this fall. I think it was supposed to come out around November-ish. It was around the same time as Death Stranding 2. And we're gonna get a little bit into that later, and we'll go into an
The
interesting
release
article that
windows.
Kojima, yeah, about release windows, and how that kind of works out. But it is now slated for May 26th. I have not watched a trailer at all about it. And I'm kind of the mindset nowadays where it's like I kind of want to go in as blind as possible, right?
Yeah.
And I learned this with recently I'm playing it through Expedition 33, right? And I'm going in as blind as possible. Um Unfortunately, there has been things because being on social media and everything, there has been things here and there where I'm just like, I can't believe I just saw that, right? And I'm like, I'm just gonna try to forget what I just saw because I'm not even at the end of Act 1. Besides the point, right? Um, for
On
for
that
GTA
topic,
6.
man. On that
Mm-hmm.
topic. So I'm scrolling through TikTok the other day, and I see this video because there's been a lot of like top 10 videos recently of people doing like their top 10 favorite games. And this person was it was their top 5 worst endings in video games, like the things they think are the craziest. And like I think the number 5 was like Frenzied Flame ending kind of thing. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not even going to say what game that is in case I'm spoiling that for someone. But like they're going through that, and I'm scrolling through and I'm looking at them. Their number 1 ending, and I just read what they called it, and then it says Expedition 30, and I'm fastest I've ever scrolled in my life. I'm all like, nope, nope. I want no information. Delete that from my brain. Like, how do you how do you do that? How do you do
Yeah,
that?
I
Have
think
a game that came out like a week ago as your number 1 ending? Like, rage bait, man.
oh
Rage bait.
see I heard that wrong. It was number one ending, like just terrible of all time. Is that what you're referring to, or just
So
greatest of all time?
he was
Like,
calling it like the best bad endings. Like if a game has multiple endings and you choose like the bad one. And like, I don't even know if the game has multiple endings or if they just thought the game was considered a bad ending, but like, I scrolled away.
You don't want to know anything about that, right?
Exactly. Like, of all the things to like put about a game that came out a week ago, you know, like, it's one thing to be like, oh, this is my reaction to the prologue, like first chapter, like this is my reaction to a certain fight. But to be like, no, here's like the summary of the end of the game, like, come on, man. Come on. Put a spoiler warning for what games you're talking about if that's what you're doing. And yes, it's probably my fault because I'm scrolling on that topic, but you know.
Just to touch on that topic too, right? I'm usually kind of okay sometimes where I'm just like, I was like, okay, it didn't really. I understand the ending now, but it's like I want to see how you get there, right? I want to see how we get to that point.
Yeah.
But for like, I feel like there's also a respect thing going on here where I realize how much respect this game has, right? And you know, we both come from Final Fantasy 14 backgrounds, right?
Yep.
Where the community has enough respect to just like shut up when they need to shut up, right?
The 14 community is unique in that like there is, even as it's grown, somehow we have been able to like spread the, no man, there is a 2-week embargo anytime a patch comes out. If it's a new expansion, it's a month. And like somehow everyone's figured it out. They just keep their mouths shut.
Right. And you know, that's a fascinating point. It's like how communities react to these endings, right? Or just like any spoilers just in general, right? And this, I feel like for me, this is one of those games where I feel like I respect it enough where I'm not gonna try to look up anything on purpose, right? Because I admittedly, okay, I'm gonna out myself here, right? Admittedly, where I'm just like, I go through a video game and I'm like, you know, I want to learn more about this character. So I look up their Wikipedia page and everything, and you're like, and you see their status. There's like, you know, like a Wikipedia page is like status, and it just says deceased.
Right? You're like,
no. So I mean, it does happen, right? But I feel like for this one in particular, right? I feel like the respect is there for me, where I'm just like, okay, I'm not gonna look at anything. Anywho, going back to Grand Theft Auto 6, and being delayed back over to, I think the release date was moved back to, like I said, May 26th. Which does change a lot of things for a lot of game developers, right?
Of next year?
2020 of next year, yes.
Of next year, yeah.
I want to also note, I am also expecting it to get delayed again, but also in the same year. I'm expecting it to get delayed probably one more time, and that's probably going to go into the fall of 26. That's just what I'm thinking, right? Whether or not that is actually true, I think GTA 5 got delayed twice, or it might have been Red Dead. I know a recent Rockstar game got delayed twice.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that's going to happen again, right? And you know, not necessarily a bad thing. We can talk on that. You know, that old Shigeru Miyamoto quote, right? Where it was like, you know, a bad game can always be bad, you know, but a polished game, you know that tweet from Miyamoto. I don't know what it is in verbatim.
Yeah.
But anyway, there is an article that was published earlier in the week, where Hideo Kojima was asked about why they are releasing Death Stranding 2 at the same time as GTA 6. And now that no longer is the case, but I wanted to bring this topic up because he also mentions that, you know, pretty much everyone is going to be like moving away out of GTA 6's way, right? They're going to move out of that release window. They don't want to be nowhere close to it, right? And this isn't like a video game issue. This is, you know, we've seen this in movies, seen these in like other forms of media, right? Where it's like, you know, you have like Infinity Game for the Avengers, right? That's a good example. Like, I don't think anybody wants to release their movie the same week or the same month, maybe, that movie comes out, right?
It's the idea of limited resources. As a consumer, your consumers does not have unlimited time and money, and so
Mhm.
you want to compete with as little as possible to get that time or that money. You want to say, hey, if I know my consumer has $70 to spend on a video game, I don't want to
Mhm.
be I want to be in a month by myself where I am the game that is getting that $70 spent on. I don't want to be in a month with 4 other games and give them options. I want to be the guy sitting there.
Right. And here's the question I'm gonna pose to you. Is yeah, and I think you've already alluded to that this is a good thing, right? Is that people, game companies should be cognizant of what they're releasing and when they're releasing it, right? Because at the end of the day, this is something I think people like to take for granted. This is a business, right? And people are trying to make money out of this, right?
Yep.
So you want as much eyes as you possibly want on your product, um, and not being like siphoned off by like GTA 6, right? Um, what's your take on this? Like, having delays and then, people saying, "Oh, there's also another fact too, right? Is that we have this sliding scale of like, okay, GTA 6 was delayed. We can release at this point, right? Oh, it was delayed again. Now that ruins our timeline of these
Yeah.
video games being released, right? So, in your eyes, how do you see how do you see that impacting like when games are being released just because of that fear of GTA 6 could be releasing here, but it could also release here, right? Um
So there's a couple things I would say on it. So I do think those release windows are important. Like I just said, kind of being the man by yourself of wanting to be the one game that everyone wants that month. Um, I think I think gaming companies are aware of that, like what their competition is. I think gaming companies also um, have research behind making sure they're not in competing spaces. What I mean by that is uh, the true variety gamer is rare. As much as we think the variety gamer is everyone these days, as I've talked to people, you find there are people that really there's like 2 or 3 genres of games that they really enjoy. It's a lot harder to find someone these days who truly does play everything. Um, and I play a lot of different genres, but even I have some stuff that I don't touch. And that being the case, some games know that they're not competing with other games in a given space. Like every Metroid, here's an example. If Silk Song came out the same week as GTA, every person who loves Metroidvanias is buying Silk Song over GTA.
mhm.
Like I have no doubt in my mind that like the Metroidvania lovers are not going to be swayed by GTA 6. Now, if it was Assassin's Creed whatever coming out the same time as GTA 6, I think the overlap of people who play Assassin's Creed and the people who play GTA probably exists a lot
Mhm.
stronger. So I think there's that to note of I think companies looking at overlap with what's coming out. I think an interesting example of that recently where you were talking about Expedition 33, and that's been a huge hit with RPG fans. I knew some RPG fans that were very upset that Oblivion Shadow dropped 2 days ahead of
Mhm.
Expedition 33. They felt it was dirty. They felt it was 2 games that were definitely conflicting for an audience. Um, and we have seen Expedition 33. They've just crossed 2 million sales. And there is a question of if Oblivion didn't come out 2 days before, would they be at 3? Would they be at 4? They were kind of this
Mhm.
hugely like this heavy expected game. Um, and to have something as big as Elder Scrolls drop 2 days before, like um, that is something that gaming companies can't really predict. And it's that same thing you're saying of if GTA gets moved into someone's window, especially if it's something that's that close, where it's like, oh, it gets moved within a day or a week of when you were planning to release. Like, I do think gaming companies suffer when something like that happens, and it is unfortunate. I've seen articles about Steam releases where there will be indie games that'll work for months to get marketing, and they'll be on like the top 10 for most like wish listed games, and then EA will like drop a game and like, or drop like a huge collection of games that have been remastered, and it'll just wreck the standings for where people are. So I do think gaming companies feel it when something gets delayed and gets moved, because I do think they count on those dates to say, okay, let's move away from that. Let's find somewhere where we're not going to compete. But I guess I think if gaming companies are smart, they can look at games and say, oh, this really isn't a competitor to our genre. We can survive in that same window.
So I was just Googling this. I was trying to remember the last time I remember this, at least for me personally, like where like I have my niches, right? So like RPGs, adventure games, any form of like, that kind of games, right? Where they kind of are released within reasonable amount of time with each other, right? And the last time that happened for me, and I remember this very fondly, it was when the West release of Persona 5 came out and Breath of the Wild came out. They were a month apart from each other. Right? Now, I remember Breath of the Wild came out first. It came out March 3rd, 2017. I had to just Google this because I knew they came out around the same time. I didn't realize it was 2017.
So I actually bought a Switch and Breath of the Wild for my birthday that year, because my birthday's March 5th. That was my birthday present to me that year. So I've never forgotten that day.
So Persona 5 came out in April of 2017. I don't know if this. I'm just looking at this date for the West, at least, right? In Japan, it was released way sooner, so that in Japan it didn't have that issue, but in the West it did, right? But I remember very distinctively going through Breath of the Wild and playing through that, and that's not a short game, right? It's like an 80+ hour game, right? And neither is Persona.
In my case,
200, yeah, in some cases, right? For me, it was like 80+, and I was like, I'm done with this. And Persona 5 was also around the same amount of time, 80+ hour games. Now you have these two conflicting games that are taking a long amount of time, and I remember distinctively going and seeing Breath of the Wild, and playing Breath of the Wild, and it was the week before Persona 5 came out. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to finish in time. Right? I don't think I'm going to finish this before I play Persona 5. And I think what I did end up doing, if I remember correctly, I don't remember the exacts of when I started which game and when I ended this game. I think I dropped Breath of the Wild for about a month just to finish Persona 5. And I remember that very fondly. And that was the last time I remember something like this happening. I don't know what is in. I should Google it. I don't know what is in Grand Theft Auto 6's release window now. Let me see. Video game releases.
I don't know if there is any major titles that I can think of.
In 2026. Oh, I just looked up 2025. We should look up 2026. It is very hard to find something that's an exact date for 2026, but yeah, there hasn't been anything that was kind of like, this is what is going to release in 2026.
I can think of games that have been announced for 2026. None of them GTA 6 level. Like, I have games that I'm personally excited about that are coming out in 26, but not like, oh, everyone's freaking out about this.
And then comparing that back to the fall of 2025, you did have Death Stranding.
Yeah, Death Stranding's in June this year.
What else was in fall of 2025? I know the Pokemon game. I
Supposedly
mean, I don't
Silk
know.
Song is. We don't have an exact date, but supposedly Silk Song.
The Silk Song is a
Supposedly is
believe it.
carrying that sentence, man. Supposedly is carrying that sentence.
So I've been burnt on that tree before. It is definitely one of those situations where it's like I'll believe it when I see it. I'm at that point where it's
Yeah.
like I know it is.
Well, so here's the reason why I actually believe Silk Song will come out this fall. There's a museum in Australia. This was in the news. They're going to have a display of it in August. You can go to the museum and play it. So Team Cherry has promised the game to a museum for this event in August. So
oh man, that's gonna be
maybe it'll be a demo version, but I had a friend who said he's going to fly over for it.
That's not unheard of. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know. I was thinking about going whether or not I should go to PAX this year, and it might be a PAX. I don't know. What I forgot. Remind me off the top of my head what publisher or developer that
Team Cherry.
It's from Cherry.
It's an indie, yeah. I could see them at PAX West.
Usually
September.
indie devs do. Yeah, indie devs do tend to go to PAX West, so I wouldn't be surprised either way. So yeah. Anyway, there's a lot of TBAs, but there's the new the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, right?
Ghost of Yotei, that's a big one.
That's coming out in October, so around that same time.
Yeah, they just got October 2nd, right?
Yes. There October? It was October 2nd. Yes.
Yeah, that was like just announced. I feel like that was.
Oh yeah.
I feel like that was like a week ago that I started getting notifications for that.
There's also the Borderlands 4.
Yep.
Game that's coming out in September.
So that's a great example. That's a great example of what I was talking about earlier. Borderlands 4, huge game, highly anticipated, does not register on my radar. I haven't played any of the Borderlands. Like, if a game that I want comes out the same week as Borderlands, that's not a choice for me. And I think Borderlands knows who their audience is, and they are strategically putting it not next to something they feel is going to be competition for them.
But if it did come out around the same time as GTA, that's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah.
GTA, I think, is one of those franchises that is so huge.
You just stay away from.
Like we talk about those multi-million-dollar sellers, and it's a great example of this. You talked about Breath of the Wild, a game that I absolutely adore, Horizon Zero Dawn. The Horizon series is famously cursed with this. Horizon Zero Dawn came out late February 2017. Horizon Zero Dawn is a masterpiece. It's a fantastic open world game. It did go on to sell 20 million copies. A lot of people are all like, why is PlayStation pushing Horizon? Because it sold 20 million copies. It's a popular game. But in the moment, in terms of like press and talking about it and stuff like that, it was so overshadowed by Breath of the Wild. And then its sequel comes out in February of, I think it was 2021, with Elden Ring. And the exact same thing happened. Forbidden West, fantastic game, an achievement in like gaming in terms of like technical specs and stuff like that. Phenomenal, fun to play, completely overshadowed by Elden Ring. And I think FromSoft has kind of hit that status as well, similar to GTA. Whatever FromSoft's next single player game is, I mean, even Armored Core was a big one. Armored Core 6 came out and was the biggest Armored Core sales ever. I think Elden Ring Night Rain is gonna be a big release, even though it's not single player. That's May 30th. And I think that's gonna garner a lot of discussion and a lot of talk, being their first fully multiplayer game. And like I can't even think of other stuff that's coming out this month because my brain is so wired on like, oh, Night Rain's coming out the 30th. That's
Right.
so GTA is one of those that you're saying that it's like you don't want to be near that franchise. You just don't.
Anyway, speaking of Elden Ring, right? And I don't know how excited you are about this next topic. But there are rumors, and you are okay. I'm gonna preface this as Blitz right over here is more of an Elden Ring fan and more of an Elden Ring um professional, I guess you want to say, than I am. I played
Coaching my brother through it right now.
Yeah.
He's almost Elden Lord. He's almost Elden Lord.
He is the Elden Lord himself sitting on that chair right now. But there were rumors. I don't know if you've heard about this. There was rumors of an Elden Ring movie.
So
It is.
here's the thing. I don't know if they're rumors. I think like they're confirmed.
So it's been that's a good point.
Supposedly Alex Garland has signed on to direct.
It is a movie made by Alex Garland, directed by Alex Garland, the person recently that did Civil War. Fantastic movie if you haven't seen that.
Yeah.
But it was like confirmed, and it was like, oh, we're definitely not doing that, and it was like, oh, maybe we are, right? It's kind of it was definitely one of those things where it was kind of like, oh shoot, I shouldn't have said that, because I think that's where they said it. I think it was in a was it leaked through a it was definitely retracted after a story. That's what I'm reading here. But anyway, I don't think that's the point that I want to go across is I don't know how an Elden Ring movie would actually turn out to be.
So
right?
Here's what I'm gonna say about an Elden Ring movie. And I feel this way about all FromSoft games. I think that FromSoft games do not have good stories. And I'm going to get flamed for this, so let me explain. If you took every cutscene in Elden Ring and put it into like a YouTube video, I don't think you fill 20 minutes. Like there is incredible lore, there's incredible world building, and there are incredible stories throughout a game like Elden Ring. The same with Bloodborne, the same with the Dark Souls franchise. Like there are little stories that you follow, but the actual story of Elden Ring, I mean, you are a character that doesn't talk. You are a stand-in character. You've got these big personalities that all have their own different pull. Like I don't know how you do a Elden Ring movie without a subtitle. And what I mean by that is like if you said, okay, we're gonna do a movie called Elden Ring: The Age of Stars, and right off that title, oh, we're following Ronnie's story. Like this is gonna be a movie about Ronnie. We're gonna do the Ronnie ending, like, and that you can look at and go, okay, I see how a narrative can be pieced together. The other thing I would say is, with all that lore, if you are a good storyteller, I look at like Vadi Vita, the guy who does all the Elden Ring lore videos on YouTube, unmatched. He has a whole team behind him at this point, and he does a beautiful job of fleshing out these stories and telling them in like an hour, and explaining what's going on. But even in that it's a narrated story with like little blurbs from the game. So I feel like there's lots of lore and there's lots of stuff to work with. I don't think you tell a story from the game. I think you tell a story in that world. And I don't even know if you follow the Tarnished. I think you follow a different character who is maybe living in the world that is getting affected by the tarnish. Like you have this guy and like, you know, he's in town and he's talking to someone and they're like, oh, did you hear Godric was slain? And it's like, well, what do you mean Godric was slain? What's happening in Stormvale Castle now? Right. And like maybe you tell the story of a guy who is witnessing the rise of the next Elden Lord, you know? Right. And like your final shot of the movie is like him and Lindell watching the guy sit on the throne as people cheer or something like that. But like it's a tricky game to adapt into a movie, and I think, you know, it sold 30 million copies, so somebody wants to try. But I don't think it's built for it. And I think games as a medium are inherently special in the way they allow us to tell a different kind of story. And while there are games that do translate in a series, I think The Last of Us was a perfect candidate in the way that HBO did that. But like, am I going to go watch an Elden Ring movie? Probably, because I'm a FromSoft fan, but I'm not going into it expecting to get the feeling that I get playing the game. The same way the D&D movie didn't give me the feeling of playing D&D, but like it captured the world in a way.
Right. And I feel like what you mentioned, right? I don't think, because, you know, main story and all that stuff, I don't know how you make that into a movie. I'm going to be honest with you. Right? But, you know, this is something that I've always felt with a lot about video game movies in general, right? You don't have to give me an exact one-for-one remake of a game that I've already played, right? You don't have to do that. You can give me a different story in a different world, and it would be perfectly okay, right? And I think that's good, right? And there's something that was interesting, you know. I don't know if you've seen the it isn't leaks or anything. It's officially confirmed like a while back ago. The Legend of Zelda movies, right?
Yeah.
I think it was the Legendary Studios that were making it, and I'm like sitting here, I'm like, how is that going to work, right? Because one, like you mentioned, Elden Ring has a voiceless character. It doesn't have anything. Link is very much the same way.
Do you make Link talk?
Right.
That's the question. And once you decide that, you can tell a story. But I mean, look at the Mario movie.
I mean, the Mario movie was pretty. I mean, I think it's different with the Mario movie and even the Sonic movie, right? Because I think you're like, oh yeah, it's Mario. Of course he can talk, right? And it's like, yeah. But I mean, I guess you can make the same case for Link, right? But it's the tone of the story as well, right? The Mario movie was a very lighthearted story in general. And the games are, you know, I know there are bits and pieces that are like, that's pretty dark, ain't it? But you know, it is a general lighthearted. Now for depending on what you do for Zelda, right? It is vastly different. And there is like, I don't know if it would be immersion breaking where it's like, oh yeah, now Link talks, and I'm like, I'm not used to this, right? Yeah. I'm not used to having that of just like Link talking and like, what is this? I mean, of course, if you played the CDI games or anything like that, you know, those old CDI games.
Do you remember the old DIC show?
The DIC show? No, I do not.
DIC made a Zelda cartoon.
I've seen the cartoon.
Aged well. Has not aged well. Excuse me, princess.
Oh yeah. No. I've seen that show. I have do I have it on VHS somewhere? I think I do. I think I have it on Same with that in the Mario show, right? The animated
the old
show.
Mario show, yeah.
Yeah, I have that on VHS somewhere. Well, I think I bought it at a thrift store. I think that's where I ended up buying those movies or VHSs from.
And you know, I think it's interesting. I think there's different audiences for video game movies. And what I mean when I say that is, I'll use the Minecraft movie as an example. I saw when the initial trailers came out I saw so many like reviewers and people being like, "Oh, this is going to be so bad. This
Hmm.
is like they don't get it." Um, but you know who went and saw that movie and made it a huge success is the kids who grew up watching Minecraft YouTubers and the kids who
Exactly.
grew up playing Minecraft, a generation below us. Like, I'm
Right.
not even saying like 14-year-olds. I'm saying kids who are like, and kids isn't even the right word, but like people who are like 22, 21 now, um, that went and had fun and enjoyed this and loved it. Similar to the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Um,
Hmm.
and I think we've moved away from the era of trying to do a video game movie like the Assassin's Creed movie. To they've kind of cracked some kind of secret sauce of, well, let's put a lot of references in it. Let's make it be something that like is original but pays a lot of homage to the thing it's coming from.
Hmm.
And I think that's how you do an Elden Ring movie. Is it's, you know, like you have a scene where a dude pulls out the Moonlight Greatsword in a fight or something, and everybody
Right.
goes, "Holy crap! It's the Moonlight Greatsword!" Like, I don't, but like you don't tell a story from the game. You've gotta find the way to pay homage to it while still being original. Because if you try to cling on to it too much, you will not hit the same notes. You just
Hmm.
won't. Um, and I think studios are finally starting to see that, as we've seen several, not necessarily faithful, but praised adaptations in the last couple years.
Hmm.
Um, and so I don't think it's impossible to do a Zelda movie. I don't think it's impossible to do an Elden Ring movie. Um, but I think we as gamers have to turn around and go, well, what are we expecting from this kind of movie? And
Hmm.
understand that it's never going to be the experience you get from playing the game. It's never going to be that feeling. But like, I think if we go in hoping that they're paying homage to Zelda, that they're not making, what was that 90s Mario movie? Have you ever seen that one?
Oh yeah, yeah. The
Where they
live
like
action one.
go in the sewers and they're eating explosive mushrooms and stuff like
Right.
that. Like, we're hoping for more than that, but I don't think our hopes can be give me this video game as a movie, because inherently I don't think video games can be turned into movies. I just don't.
Yeah. And you know what made me very hopeful about movies was actually, and I'm saying this as not entirely a fan of the franchise, right? Is the Sonic movies, right? They were huge, right? It wasn't until Sonic, the third movie that just came out, right, just recently, where it was like, you know what? I'm curious now. Let me see what this is all about. Because coming into video game movies, I've always watched, was like, even it's the same way with anime movies. Do you remember that Dragon Ball anime movie that they try to make, or not,
Yeah.
or live action movie that they try to make? And I was like, oh, no one can make. That's a different story. But it's like it's very hard to adapt something from, either from being from like especially from a video game, right? Um, but though I came in, I heard really good things about the third movie, and I was like, you know what? Sure, I'll give it a shot. Right? What's the worst that can happen? I'll have fun either way, I suppose. Right? Because I heard they're a great time. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I freaking loved every single one of them, especially the third one, because as you mentioned earlier, um, paying homage. And I'm gonna spoil the third movie a little bit. When they played Live and Learn, right?
Yeah.
It was I was like, oh my god! I remember hearing the song. I remember playing Sonic Adventure 2. I was like, this brings back memories. And it's the cool thing about it too, right? Is that the old people that are watching the movie alongside with their kids now, right? They're just like, it's gonna be like that uncle. There's a TikToker. I forgot his name. He's like, let me tell you about the time when I was there when what is that Taco Bell item that came out a long time ago around 2000? That's very popular right now. Um, it was I know it's very
The Crunchwrap Supreme, the Mexican
the
pizza.
Crunchwrap Supreme. Yeah, the Crunchwrap Supreme, right? When that was like I was there when the Crunchwrap Supreme was released, right? But it was very much
I
like
do
that.
remember
You're
the
talking to your
Crunchwrap
kid, and it was
Supreme
like,
getting released.
you know,
Good time. It was a good year.
it was a good year. Um, but you have these interactions now with people that either your cousins, your kids, or whoever that's going to be, right? It's like this is what I remember, and now you're experiencing this through a different light, but it's kind of the same, right? And now it might be also a good opportunity for them to be like, hey, do you want to see where this was originally like, from, right? Do you want to play Sonic Adventure 2, right? And I think that's overall a good thing. But I still think going back to, the new movies that are coming out with, Elden Ring and Legend of Zelda, I think it is still good to be hesitant about it, right? Because it's, you know, a lot of people, and people are going to do this, right? No matter what I say, they're gonna put so much high expectation on this movie, they're just gonna be let down anyway, right?
So this is something that I talk about a lot with friends. Uh the concept of going in with no expectations. I so frequently see the phrase, I went in with no expectations and I was still disappointed. And it's like, no, that's like the fact that you were disappointed means you had some expectation of something, whether that was just an expectation to have a good time. I think as what I have learned to do in my old age, I know I'm only 32, but in my old age, I have learned to stop saying what do I want to receive, and rather look at things as what does the creator want to give me.
Right.
So,
Mm-hmm.
like when I look at a great example is Final Fantasy. We both have a Final Fantasy background. I think the Final Fantasy community is one that is very vocal of we want this, we want this, we want this.
Mm-hmm.
And I go into every Final Fantasy game rather than saying this is what I want out of a Final Fantasy experience, saying, cool, what is Final Fantasy giving me this time? And I've never had a
Right.
Final Fantasy game I haven't enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it's a similar thing with movies. Like Sonic 3 is a great example of, I think people knew they were adapting the Sonic Adventure 2 story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people went in saying this is what I want them to give me. But at the same time, I think the people making the Sonic movies had something that they wanted to put out and that they wanted to give that may not necessarily been what people were expecting. But was still a fun thing. I think like the Jim Carrey dance theme,
Right. Mm-hmm.
that was something way far left field of the game,
Mm-hmm.
tonally and all that stuff. But how many people loved that because they were willing to let the movie be what it was going to be. They let the Sonic movies have that comedic tone, even though I don't think the Sonic games are necessarily comedic games. There may be
Mm-hmm.
sassy games, but I wouldn't call it comedic games. Um, and I think in terms of what you're saying, I think people are going to put these huge high expectations on an Elden Ring movie. And I think what I'm here to say is the best way to temper those expectations is don't create a checklist of what you want out of the Elden Ring movie. Don't make a checklist saying this is what has to be in it for a successful movie. Go in saying, I want to see what story they're going to tell with the Elden Ring universe. I want to see what they have to give me and then judge it after for what they gave you rather than what you wanted to receive.
Okay. I know I messaged you about this, right? Do you know? I know you don't know what this is. Have you ever heard of a Labubu before?
I have never heard of a Labubu.
Okay, I'm going
Unless I've
to.
heard it in passing, I have no clue what this is.
I am going to send you an image of a Labubu right now, and I want you to tell me
Okay,
what
I'm gonna
what
look
your
at it on my phone.
what is your first instinct when you see this?
Okay, I'm opening this. I don't want that thing near me.
Okay, and I want you to also
That is
be
the kind of doll that gets possessed while you're sleeping, and you wake up with that thing staring over you.
So, you don't know, what you don't know is that this is actually a fashion trend right now. This thing is a fashion trend that people are putting on themselves, right? Some people, they have it on their bags. Some
Like
people,
the
they're putting
outfit,
it
or they're carrying it around.
their outfit, right? Let me see if I can pull up an outfit of like a Labubu outfit of someone. They usually put it on their, like, where the
How big are
keychains
these
go in your
things?
pants. These things are about like yay high or something like that. They're
That's a
like,
little too big to be wearing around as a keychain.
no, but they're people are wearing them around as keychains. I'm gonna, like, you can Google it, and I'm gonna post images of it right now of people walking around, um,
People
with
trying too
Labubus out
hard.
there,
People trying too
and
hard.
it is just, I just, this is one of those things where it's like, I know I'm getting too old because it's like I just don't get it, right? You know what I
I don't
mean?
get it.
And
Is
there's
this
also,
the Beanie Baby of the new generation?
I think, you know what? That's a good comparison. This is the
This is
Beanie Baby of this
this
generation.
thing that, like, people are gonna start collecting, and they're gonna be like, 20 years from now, these are gonna be worth money. Beanie Babies aren't worth anything anymore. Actually,
Do
they
you know
might
what?
be. People might be selling Beanie Babies on eBay for a ton of money. I have no clue.
So I was going through a couple short form videos, like on TikTok and YouTube Shorts, and they're like, "Oh my god, this has gotten to this point where people are making fake Labubus now,
They're
and
They're boo boo. They're rip off Labubus.
they are rip off Labubus, and people are be like, "You don't have a legit one. That's a shame, right?" I'm just like,
Is your Labubu name brand? Oh, that's a
is it?
Ladoodoo? Sorry. We're not letting you into the club tonight.
But
We're not messing around with Ladoodoo havers.
But they do go for it. I mean, the most expensive one that I see on, like, there's this website called PopMart. It goes to $290. A Labubu costs $290. Um, Now this is just Google telling me. I haven't actually looked at which Labubu was $290.
Please tell me they're not collabing. Please tell me we're
They
not
are
doing Marvel Labubus and video
there
game Labubus.
there are collabs with Labubus. There are collabs. I don't know exactly what collabs there are. They're usually, like, with like foods
Listen,
or
I already didn't understand why Funko Pops were popular. I can't. I'm not ready for the Labubu wave. I just
um
reconciled with Funko Pops.
I don't know. There is a Tony Chopper Labubu.
I could see a Tony Chopper Labubu. He
I
fits the
want you to
aesthetic.
guess. I want you to guess the cost of it.
Well, it's one piece. It was probably a limited run. We're gonna go 180. We're gonna go
$180?
180. Yeah, for that Tony
Higher.
Chopper Labubu. Higher? You said the most expensive was 290.
Okay, this is more expensive than 290.
Okay, it's more expensive. Well, if we're in the more expensive range, then I'm gonna say 350.
Higher.
Higher. We're not in the 4 digits.
We are in the 4 digits.
We're in the 4 digits for a Tony Chopper Labubu? How limited run was this thing?
This is now sold out. This is out of stock. And this Labubu, this is a mega Labubu, 1000%, or whatever that means. This is $1,259.90. To be fair, I mean, I can see the appeal. I would never buy one, but I get it.
Listen,
now
I can't judge. I've got a giant Sephiroth and a 2B figure behind me. You know, people like what they like. People are allowed to spend their money how they want to spend it. But I don't know, $1,000 for a keychain?
It's okay. This is 30. This Labubu is 31.3 inches.
Okay, so this is a giant stuffed animal at that point.
This is a giant stuffed animal.
This is a big Tony. This is like a life-size Tony Chopper.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can see that. At that size, you know, let the people.
At that point, it's just a stuffed animal.
Let the people have their fun.
Exactly. Alrighty.
Tony Chopper. Well, so fun topics tonight. Video game adaptations, video game release windows. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on it. If you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment. If you're listening to it on a podcast, feel free to leave a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Tell us about a release window that really stressed you out of two games coming out too close to each other that you wanted to play both. And tell us your favorite video game movie adaptation, or a video game that you wish got a movie adaptation. But thanks for sharing some time with us talking about gaming. This has been the Gaming Podcast with me, Blitz, and my co-host Jim, and we'll see you next time.
Catch you later.